August 6, 1945. Hiroshima, Japan. By 8:00 a.m., the summer sun was already beating down on the city streets. The mercury pushed past 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and the air was thick with suffocating coastal humidity. For 29-year-old Tsutomu Yamaguchi, a naval engineer for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, the heat was just a minor nuisance. This was supposed to be a day of pure relief, the absolute final day of his grueling 3-month temporary stint at the local shipyards. His bags were packed, and his mind was already 300 kilometers away, back home in Nagasaki with his wife, Hisako, and their infant son. As Yamaguchi walked toward the docks to wrap up his paperwork, the city around him was locked into its usual wartime routine. Shopkeepers opened their doors, and mobilization students headed to their shifts. At 7:09 a.m., the air raid sirens had wailed when a lone American weather scout plane was spotted overhead. But it quickly cleared the area, and by 7:31 a.m., the all-clear signal was given. The citizens went right back to work. Then at 8:13 a.m., Japanese radar operators picked up 3 more incoming blips, the Enola Gay and her escorts. But the local command decided against sounding a second alarm, figuring it wasn't worth causing a panic over just 3 planes. The people of Hiroshima kept moving under a cloudless blue sky, completely unaware that the clock had already run out. At exactly 8:15 a.m., the B-29 bomber Enola Gay released its lethal payload from 31,600 feet. The atomic bomb, codenamed Little Boy, plummeted in a silent, free-fall ballistic trajectory. There were no parachutes on the weapon itself. It fell rapidly, a hidden speck in the blinding morning glare. The only parachutes in the sky belonged to the radio instruments dropped by the escort plane, the Great Artiste. Down at the shipyards, Yamaguchi caught a fleeting glimpse of the silver American bomber high above, just as it pulled into a sharp, banking turn to escape the blast radius. A heartbeat later, 1,900 feet over the city center, the bomb detonated. In a fraction of a second, the sky fractured. A silent, blinding flash of purple and white light swallowed the horizon, wiping out every shadow in an instant. The temperature at ground zero spiked into millions of degrees, turning everything within miles into kindling. Seconds later, the shockwave slammed into the docks like a cosmic sledgehammer. The ground buckled, and the violent blast picked Yamaguchi up, tossing him like a rag doll through the air before throwing him into a roadside ditch. The sky turned pitch black as a towering wall of dust, and debris blotted out the sun, plunging the living world into an abrupt, terrifying midnight. When Yamaguchi came to, the air was suffocating, thick with gray ash and the pungent stench of burning sulfur. His left eardrum was ruptured, his vision blurred, and agonizing radiation burns covered the entire left side of his upper body. The bustling industrial hub he knew just moments ago was gone, replaced by a smoking, apocalyptic wasteland. He dragged himself to his feet, trying to make sense of a labyrinth of flattened buildings, twisted steel, and collapsing structures. All around him, ghostly figures emerged from the black fog. Their clothes had been burned away, their skin peeling in ribbons. These silent survivors moved like sleepwalkers, driven solely by a desperate, primal instinct to find water or shelter. Yamaguchi crawled through the scorching debris toward a concrete air raid shelter near the ruined shipyard. Inside, the dim bunker was packed to the gills with wounded workers, their groans echoing in the heavy, airless dark. He lay on the cold floor, cradling his scorched flesh, with absolutely no idea that his nightmare was only just getting started. Yamaguchi knew that staying in the ruins of Hiroshima meant certain death. His only North Star was getting back to his family. After a night of agonizing pain in the shelter, he forced himself back out into the smoldering streets on the morning of August 7th. He limped through the debris toward the western edge of the city, aiming for the train station. The main roads were a total gridlock of destruction, forcing him to navigate a horrific landscape where rivers were choked with casualties. Against all odds, he discovered that the railway line to the south was miraculously still operational. He squeezed into a damaged train carriage packed to the ceiling with severely burned, traumatized refugees. The train slowly pulled away from the ashes of Hiroshima, embarking on a tense, overnight journey across the Japanese countryside. Exhausted, severely dehydrated, and slipping in and out of consciousness, Yamaguchi hung on by a thread. He was heading back to Nagasaki, under the illusion that he was escaping the horrors of war and running toward safety. On the morning of August 8th, the refugee train finally rolled into Nagasaki Station. Wrapped in heavy bandages from head to toe and visibly shaking, Yamaguchi was completely unrecognizable to the local authorities. He collapsed right on the platform and was rushed to the local Mitsubishi hospital. The facility was bursting at the seams with wartime casualties, but a doctor managed to clean his extensive burns and dress his wounds with fresh bandages. His wife, Hisako, and their young son came to his bedside, breaking down at the sight of his blackened skin and severe injuries. Yet, despite the intense physical agony, the familiar sights and sounds of his hometown brought a fragile sense of peace. He genuinely believed the worst was behind him, and that the strange, terrifying weapon was just a freak, one-time tragedy. He spent the rest of the day resting, trying to wrap his head around the incomprehensible power that had just wiped Hiroshima off the map. By the morning of August 9th, despite his severe injuries and restrictive bandages, Yamaguchi's strict Japanese work ethic kicked in. He felt a profound sense of duty to report the total destruction of the Hiroshima branch to his superiors. At 11:00 a.m., he sat in an office, facing his department head, Katsujiro Yoshida. Yamaguchi described a single weapon that could obliterate an entire industrial city in a split second, vaporizing concrete and steel. Yoshida openly mocked him. "You're an engineer, Tsutomu," the boss said skeptically. "Do the math. How could a single bomb flatten an entire city? You've completely lost your mind from the concussion." Yamaguchi tried to stand his ground, pointing to his own burned, bandaged flesh as undeniable proof of his testimony. The air in the room grew thick with tension as the managers just shook their heads, flat out refusing to accept a reality that defied every law of modern warfare. At exactly 11:02 a.m., while Yoshida was still arguing his point, the debate was permanently silenced. A brilliant, terrifying flash of white light ripped through the office windows, instantly blinding everyone in the room. The B-29 bomber Boxcar had just dropped the second atomic weapon, Fat Man, right over the Nagasaki Valley. The blast wave tore through the concrete building, blowing out the walls and showering the room with lethal shards of glass. Yamaguchi was slammed to the floor once again, his bandages ripping away as the shockwave tore through the office. Dust, fire, and intense heat choked the room, but the heavy, reinforced concrete structure barely kept the ceiling from caving in. Crawling through the suffocating smoke and debris, Yamaguchi managed to break out of the burning building and hit the ruined streets. His mind was racing with a single, panicked thought. He had to find his wife and son in that wall of fire. Nagasaki had been transformed into a mirror image of the hell Yamaguchi had fled just 2 days prior. He ran through the falling ash, his wounds reopened and bleeding, completely ignoring the pain as he searched for his neighborhood. Then, a miracle. He found his wife and son alive. They had taken cover in a reinforced hillside shelter just moments before the blast. Against all mathematical and physical odds, Tsutomu Yamaguchi and his immediate family had survived both atomic attacks. He would go on to live a long life, eventually becoming an official hibakusha, the only officially recognized double survivor of the atomic bombs. In his later years, he became a powerful voice for nuclear disarmament, sharing his story with world leaders and the United Nations. His life stood as a true monument to human endurance, a haunting reminder of a man who walked through hell twice and lived to tell the tale.